The city I chose for my water resource analysis project was Chicago, Illinois. My name is Elizabeth, and it's December 13th, 2022. So, water is the singular most important molecule for survival. In fact, the human body consists of approximately 70% water. Now, you might ask, why do living organisms need water to survive? And the answer is fairly simple. Water is necessary for transporting all different kinds of molecules that are needed for the body, and essentially it's important for your metabolism. Now, where does this water go after it's consumed or used? Water is in a cyclic cycle called the hydrogeologic cycle. Now, this cycle means that the amount of water that's on this planet is always the same. Now, Chicago, Illinois is a large major city located in Cook County. It's also within the Midwestern United States. There is a plentiful amount of water available for human consumption within this city. However, it has a main problem of contamination, particularly of harmful toxins such as lead and volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs. Now, the topography of this area is not very interesting, to be completely honest. It's very, very flat. So, the Chicago Loop Quadrangle, which is the one shown in the picture, is at an elevation of approximately 600 feet above sea level, according to the USGS in 2019. Now, I'm going to exit out of this and show a topographic map. Now, some important things to note for the city of Chicago are this river, which is the Chicago River, sorry. There are also a couple of ponds, the North and South ponds, and the harbor. And this lake is Lake Michigan. What's important to note about the Chicago River is that it actually changed directions. It used to flow this direction into the Lake Michigan. However, a while back they were getting problems with contamination, so they decided to switch the direction of the river, so now the river flows this way. Another couple of important things to note on this topographic map is that although this is the southmost side of Chicago, there also is the North Branch of the Chicago River and the South Branch down here, which is why I chose this topographic map, as I saw that it could show the most things. However, you can see right here, 600 feet elevation. There's another 600 foot. So all of this map is actually at 600 feet of elevation, which indicates that it's very, very flat. So, when you're talking about the geology, however, of this, when you're talking about the geology of this city, it's actually covered by a lot of glacial till, specifically clay and silt, according to Vitaru. It is actually within the Michigan water basin, and there is a very unique area within this region that is actually highly faulted, and it's considered a disturbance. Now, the hydrologic setting of Chicago is, as I said, with the Chicago River cutting through it in the north and south portions, and then also it includes Lake Michigan, but those are the two primary sources of water throughout this city. Now, how do people get water in this city? This is actually due to the purification of water from Lake Michigan. So the city actually obtains water from a station that's approximately 2 miles offshore in the lake, and it purifies it and provides it for the entire city of Chicago. Now, Chicago is primarily a city that uses all city water. There's very, very minimal wells in the city of Chicago, and in portion of that is because of the geology and that has a lot of clay and silt, but it does not support very much ability for wells in the area. Water quality. Well, some of you may know this already, but Chicago is a very, very polluted type of hydrologic area. So the two main things that I discovered were particularly concerning in Chicago are lead, copper, polychlorinated biphenyls, and then vinyl chloride was another main one. But it also contained other ones such as toluene, benzene, ethylbenzene, and xylene. That was particularly in the South District of Chicago Heights. That was particularly in 2003, which is not that long ago, however, still fairly recent. Now, you might ask, why is contamination so prominent within this area? Well, one of the main reasons for that is the city of Chicago is highly industrialized, meaning there are a lot of major businesses which can contribute to the contamination problem. Since it is a larger city, you have a lot of people crammed into a very small place, and having so many people in such a small area can also contribute to the contamination problem. Lastly, they do certain practices such as on St. Patrick's Day, they put a green dye into the Chicago River for festivities. However, although they claim it's non-toxic, could potentially prompt some problems with contamination if it reacts with any sort of chemicals in the water. Now, when you're discussing the past, present, and future problems of the city of Chicago, some of the past ones were that, like I said before, Chicago is highly industrialized, meaning at one point whenever it was not highly industrialized, it had to go through the process of becoming urbanized, which meant that there was less areas for soil and more areas for impervious surfaces such as concrete. Now, this led to some minor flooding issues, nothing too major. However, there was one particular flood in 1996 in the dates of July 17th and 18th. Now, a more present problem of Chicago, and in fact the most prominent problem within the city of Chicago, is the contamination problem. So, like I said before, the city of Chicago's water is not very pure, and although it does meet EPA requirements, and CDC requirements on a federal level. It also has certain, the most concerning contaminant is lead, which the EPA and CDC have stated previously that no lead exposure levels are safe, particularly for infants and young children. However, there was lead found to be in the city's water supply. So that contradiction is a little bit important to note. Another one that I found from Kelly in 2012 was that the amount of salt used on the roads in winter can actually help increase this contamination. One of the things that I noted during my research was that it had particularly high levels of salt within the soil, and it had a lot of silicone too. Now, some future problems that could potentially occur within the city of Chicago are due to actually problems not within the city of Chicago, such as in the western United States. In the western United States, the area is particularly dry. This particularly dry climate could in fact cause people to want to move more eastward to cities such as Chicago. Now, the reason why this is concerning is because an increase of human population within this area could further cause contamination problems, since you are putting more people in the same size location. Some potential solutions I thought of were increasing regulations for certain industries or businesses. You can educate the city and make more education programs about proper disposal of common household toxins or chemicals. There could be funding for making more observation wells within the city. You could limit the use of salt within the winter unless it's a necessity. And they can check landfills to make sure that they are being properly maintained, even if they are closed, and that no leachate is occurring, contributing to these chemicals. Another thing I thought of is by checking certain aspects such as the pH balance of this water, because certain pHs can contribute to, which is actually already done, and in fact, I believe it was a little bit more basic than normal. I think the pH sat at around a pH of 8, if I believe. But pH can impact metals, so maybe the natural metals are impacting with the pH and causing some sort of chemical reaction. However, there are many potential solutions also that could be discovered or attempted. So now, in conclusion, Chicago, Illinois is a large major city within the Midwestern United States that has a plentiful amount of water available for human consumption. Its main issue, however, is that the water could potentially not be safe due to the presence of harmful toxins such as lead and volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs. The overall topography of this area, as stated earlier, was that it's very, very flat and has glacial till in the form of silts and clays. The water quality within Chicago is a bit questionable due to the presence of certain compounds such as lead and VOCs, and the city of Chicago has had various problems within its development in the past: minor flooding, the present, contamination, and in the future, could be the same problem of contamination if there is nothing done to change the route that it's on. And looking towards the future, more caution should occur to avoid problems with drinking water contamination in terms of public health, and there are many, many kinds of approaches that can be implemented for this problem, anything from the more business aspect to it, to the more biological, to governmental, to monitoring, to actually doing things. And there are just many, many ways that this problem could be looked into or helped. These were my references, and these are any links to all of the resources that I stated in the previous slide.